Hey everybody, so I've got another quick watch review here today. I thought I'd change it up a little bit today since it's so nice out, so if you're wondering why you hear some wind and lawnmowers and kids screaming in the background, it's a nice day and everybody's outside. So what I have here today is my most recent acquisition, which is a Corgeut. It's a Black Bay, Heritage Black Bay 41 Homage. The reason I got it, I was contemplating getting a real Black Bay Heritage 41 Tudor Heritage Black Bay 41. Thank you. And I wanted to try this out on my wrist and see how it wore, to see whether I got tired of it, because that tends to happen with me, as you've probably figured out by how many watches I have. And you know, I liked the Tudor on paper. I loved the markers. I'm a big fan of dive watches, and I love the markers on this with the polished bezel. That kind of makes it a little bit dressier, a little bit more appropriate for the office. I was surprised that when I put this on my wrist, I didn't really like it. I liked the dial fine, but it just didn't really speak to me. And I'm not really sure what it was. I don't know if it's the bezel or just the way the watch wore, or how the lug-to-lug length, but it just didn't quite feel right. It didn't speak to me, so this watch is probably going to get flipped, so keep an eye out for it on eBay. But I thought I'd do a quick review first before I did that. So dimensions of the watch. So the watch is quite big. It's got a 41mm diameter. The lug-to-lug length here is a not insubstantial 50mm. So if you've got wrists smaller than maybe 6 3/4 inches, I probably would look elsewhere. The lug width is a very common 22mm, which works with the shape of the case and the general dimensions. I do like how big the crown is, though. It is not a dainty crown, but that carries over from the Tudor Heritage Black Bay as well. I apologize if you hear some wind blowing into the microphone right now. It's not super windy, but the camera tends to exaggerate any windy sounds. So it's a nice watch for the money. The crown is a screw-down crown, as you can see here. It is a Miyota 8215 movement, so it doesn't have a hacking seconds, but it does have a quick change date, and it is able to be hand wound. And well, you're not going to be able to hear it with this wind, but it does wind fairly smoothly, more akin to the winding of, say, a Seiko 4R36 than it is to an ETA 2824, for example. It is a very light winding mechanism, so it feels good. Something I didn't like about this Homage, though, I don't know if you can see it, the crown is a teensy bit wobbly, and it doesn't look like it quite is straight. However, it does feel solidly attached, so I'm not worried about the crown popping off. If you're expecting kind of Seiko or Citizen precision on a watch of this price, I'm not sure if you're going to quite get it here. The steel itself is a 316, so a very common steel, more scratch resistant than, say, Rolex's 904, but this did come from the factory with very fine scratches around the bezel. It doesn't really bother me too much since, as I mentioned, I'm probably going to flip it, but if you're a snob for your watches remaining pristine, it doesn't even come from the factory pristine. It is a nice watch for the money, though. I believe all in I paid, I want to say $96 for this, shipped from China. I'm not sure how they make any sort of profit on that, considering that this is a Miyota movement and, you know, the case is very well made. But it's not a... no one's going to pick it up and say, oh, you got the new Tudor Heritage Black Bay 41, because even though the face looks like it and the general shape looks like it and the case looks like it, when you pick it up in your hand, it feels nice. It doesn't feel Tudor nice, if that makes any sense. The case is relatively flat, so as I mentioned, if you've got smaller wrists than 6 3/4, and even if you have 6 3/4 inches wrists and they're not flat on the top, I'm not sure if I would look at this Corgeut. But let me show you on my wrist. I've got about 6.9-inch diameter, and it fits reasonably well. So let me... Sorry, it's a little tough with one hand and gloves. There we go. So on my 6.9-inch wrists, it wears reasonably well. I don't have any lug overhang on the wrists, and my wrists aren't super flat on the top, but they're also not completely round. As you can see, it wears well. It looks like a nice watch, and to the uninitiated non-watch snobs, they're going to look at it and say, wow, you've got a nice watch. But to those who have seen a Tudor Heritage Black Bay 41 in person, this isn't going to fool anyone, I don't think. But it does wear well, and it does look nice. And if you're looking for a nice watch for under $100, this is worth considering. You can also, I'm sure you also noticed that the case back doesn't have any sort of engraving, which is all right with me. I'm okay with it if it keeps the cost down. Nobody really sees it except for me. From the factory, it wasn't it wasn't regulated super well. It was regulated reasonably well, and what I found over the last couple days is I've been getting about 18 seconds fast a day. It's not horrible, and it'll hopefully improve as the watch breaks in, but it's reasonably accurate. About on par with Vostok's or some Seiko 5s that I've gotten. So in all, a nice watch. I don't know why I didn't fall for it. Maybe it's just I find the bezel just a tad too big for these dimensions. But I'm also guessing that they recycled this case from the, you'll see some Black Bay blue or red bezeled divers on eBay, and I'm guessing they used the same case and just stuck a polished bezel on, but the bezel felt a little too big here. And even though I liked the face in photos once it was on my wrist, or the dial, excuse me, once I liked the dial in photos, but once I had the dial on my wrist, I didn't love it. So I went ahead and ordered a Grand Seiko, and that should be here in the next few weeks or so. I ordered it from Japan. But like I said, if you're looking for a nice watch, go for it. It is a nice watch. It probably will not scratch your Heritage Black Bay 41 itch. Oh, and something I forgot to mention. The loom is pretty horrible. The pips weren't even completely filled. You'll see a video just after this. It's pretty bad. I mean, it isn't that bright to begin with, and I find that it fades within like a minute. So for the loom fans out there, this will not scratch the itch. So, like I mentioned, in all, a good watch, a nice watch, a nice looking watch, but it wasn't for me. I don't want to dissuade you from buying it because it is nice. And that's all I have.
Wanted to take a loom shot, or try to take a loom shot, but as you can see, there's really not that much loom to speak of, so let me try to charge it up with my UV flashlight. I don't know if you can see it. It looks better in the video than it does in real life, or as you can see, the loom doesn't even fill the pips completely. So if you look at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, it's not completely filled. The hands are done pretty decently, but I don't know if you can see, it's also fading pretty quickly. I don't think this will be visible, even after 20 minutes or so. So all in all, the loom is pretty disappointing, but for a $95 watch, I can't complain too much. It is a pretty good watch. It's fairly accurate, and it looks like another watch for a lot more money for 1/20th the price. So I can recommend it if that's what you're into and if you're okay with Homage watches. Video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.